I remember shooting my first roll of 35mm film. It was during a hiking trip up Mount Baldy in Southern California during whiteout conditions. Now, minus the soaking wet shoes, it was without question one of the top 3 hikes of my life, and I was absolutely blown away at the shots I got back from the lab. It's adventures like this that get me so inspired to create, so today I'll be using these shots as inspiration for my next piece of 3D art, and I'll walk you guys through my entire process for creating this looping, snowy landscape. But first, I gotta give a shout out to ASUS for sponsoring this video. Definitely stick around to learn all about their new ProArt StudioBook Pro 16 OLED laptop and how it can help you create 3D art from anywhere in the world. So you guys probably know by this point, I've been using Unreal Engine a whole lot this year. It's been an absolute blast, so I'm gonna use it to create my very last piece of art this year as well. But you guys can use any program you want to implement all these tools, techniques, tips, and tricks. So I'm gonna use the game preset here and hop into a blank level with ray tracing enabled. Now, I want to prep our environment with 3 things to help us create effectively. First, I'll add a reference character, which is huge for judging the scale of our scene. Any character will do as long as they're around like 2 meters tall. Second, I'll sketch in the lighting using the Ultra Dynamic Sky plugin. Now you can use Unreal's default lighting setup, but UDS is just too good. I'll add some clouds and crank the fog slider for now. And we'll dial these settings in later, but the last thing we need to do is bust out a camera. So I'll grab a Cine Camera Actor from the Place Actors window and pick a focal length that we like. Knowing our camera angle early on is crucial for focusing our creativity on what the camera sees. Because you guys know, it's a waste of time to work on the stuff the camera's not gonna see. And now that our scene scale's determined, our lighting's sketched in, and we got a nice camera angle, it's time for the fun stuff. Let's build out this environment. So there is this amazing free asset library built into Unreal Engine called Quixel Bridge, and I'll browse their selection of snowy 3D assets, download the nanite meshes, and add them to my scene. And I'll just drop the assets in and try and build out the environment in my reference image. Now, you'd be surprised at how much you can get away with just rotating and scaling the same asset. It really does feel like playing with Legos because all this stuff is done in real time too. Now, I got these trees from cgtrader.com and they didn't really import correctly. They're broken up into multiple parts and the pivot points all jacked up. Small stuff like this can really get in the way of our creativity, so let me show you how I'm solving these issues in Unreal. To combine the 2 parts of this tree into one mesh, I'll grab both of the tree objects in the world outliner and go to Actor, Convert Actors to Static Mesh, which gives us a single mesh to play with. This not only speeds up our workflow, but also helps with performance too. And to center this ridiculous pivot point, you can right click where you want to set the new pivot point and go to Pivot, Set Pivot Offset here. But you have to right click again and click Set as Pivot Offset to lock it in, which is super annoying. So I made a custom shortcut for both of these actions. Definitely set custom shortcuts for your most used actions. It helps your workflow, it speeds everything up, and it makes creating so much less of a drag. And with these trees looking good, we have everything we need to start setting up our loop. And the first thing we gotta do to get a loop going is set up a timeline, or a sequence as it's called in Unreal Engine, by right-clicking in the content browser, going to Cinematics, and selecting a level sequence. Once inside, I like to set my frame rate to 24 for that cinematic feel, and let's give ourselves some runway by adding like 1,000 frames or so. Now, we only need to add the objects we want to animate to this sequence, so I'll just drag in my camera and the character, and I'm gonna set up a basic tracking shot that follows our character as they walk forward into the fog. On frame 1, just keyframe the position of your camera, scrub forward in time, and dolly forward till our environment is barely out of view. And you'll see a second keyframe was automatically created. And since these keyframes ease in and out of the camera move, which we don't want, it messes up our loop, I'll right click and set both of them to linear so the camera move just goes straight through. Now hit play and see if you like the speed. Stretch the second keyframe out if you want to slow it down, or pull it back to make it faster. And once you're happy with the speed, this one's important, all right guys, are you with me? Once you're happy with the speed, take a look at the numerical difference between your start position and your end position. All right, this is a very important number. It's our loop number. It's how many units we need to duplicate everything to make our scene loop. So I suggest you round this number up or even change it to an easy whole number that you can remember, because we'll be typing it in a lot. For me, that number was 1700. So if the camera's moving 1700 units forward, that means your character needs to move 1700 units forward to match our starting position. And if we group all of our environment objects together, duplicate that group and move it 1700 units forward, it also matches our first frame. The number one thing to remember with looping renders is your first frame must perfectly match your last frame. It's kind of as easy as that. If your first frame matches your last frame, you're set. So let's duplicate our environment forward a few more times until we lose it in the fog. And now our first frame perfectly matches up with our last frame and the cut point is completely hidden. Look, but is there a way for our changes and updates to the original environment be reflected onto these duplicate environments? Because otherwise we're just gonna have to duplicate every single change a bunch of times, and I'm not doing that. So check this out. Let's grab all our environment meshes and click Convert Selection to Blueprint Class. This will essentially make a pre-comp like in After Effects that'll update across all your duplicates no matter how many times you duplicate it, and it's super helpful for our workflow because now we can clean up our seam and make any last minute tweaks to our environment all in real time. One very important tip though, these objects inside the blueprint must be set to static. You'll get weird render glitches otherwise, so don't forget it. And I gotta give a shout out to Peter for getting me on this blueprint tip. You saved me so much freaking time. Thank you, dude. But this render ain't done because we gotta add a sweet Photoscanned character, we gotta simulate a windy poncho, and we gotta add some snow to our scene. But first, I gotta shout out ASUS for sponsoring this video. They hooked me up with their new ProArt Studio Book Pro 16 OLED laptop, and I've really enjoyed everything it brings to the table while I'm working on the go. And it's packed with hardware to make creating scenes like this possible from anywhere in the world. First off, it's equipped with a gorgeous color-accurate 16-inch 4K OLED display, which gives you those true black values and the perfect color accuracy you're going for when dialing in your look. Comes loaded with an Intel i9 processor, an NVIDIA RTX A3000 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, a flexible memory configuration with up to 64 gigs of physical RAM, and a 4 terabyte SSD drive for quick file transfer and boot times for all your applications. I've definitely gotten hooked on this ASUS dial too, which lets you control things like brightness and volume on the fly, but also allows for mapping of custom inputs like brush size, saturation, or layer opacity. It's actually pretty sweet. And the ProArt Creator Hub lets you customize the dial settings, as well as performance, color, and screen calibration. Now, I've really enjoyed this laptop. It actually has become a permanent addition to my 3D workflow for on-the-go creativity. It's just an all-around solid pro-grade laptop. Now, if you're considering a portable workstation for yourself, or maybe a really nice gift for someone during the holidays, check out the ASUS ProArt Studio Book Pro 16 OLED laptop. I got a link down in the description for you guys. Clicking that link, it definitely helps me out and supports more videos like this on the channel. But thank you for your time, guys. Let's get back to the art. Let's add some snow using Ultra Dynamic Sky. It's actually as easy as dragging out the UDS weather blueprint, typing snow, and enabling it. You can adjust the weather speed, the wind direction, the snow amount, the wind fog, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's crazy how powerful this plugin is. Let's go back into our UDS lighting actor and tweak this fog, because I want to see a mountain peering out from above it all. If we type fog into the details panel, we can turn on volumetric fog, which always makes things look a bit more realistic. Let's also tweak the base fog density and foggy density contribution to get thicker looking fog. And here's the secret sauce. If we adjust the foggy height, fog fall off slider will effectively lower the fog and reveal this sweet looking mountain I snuck into the background. It's just a scaled up Megascans asset, but it totally works. All right, so the environment looks sweet, but let's create a custom photoscanned motion captured character complete with a simulated poncho. Now, at first I was like, where am I gonna get a quick and cheap hiker looking character that doesn't look like trash? Well, I remembered my photoscan from alternate realities. It's got the right clothes, it's got the right backpack, it's perfect. So for any good photoscan, you need a bunch of tack sharp, high quality photos, and I made a couple videos I'll link here if you guys want to get into some photo scanning over the break. It's actually super fun. But a friend of mine shot these images while I tried to stand as still as possible. I dropped the image set into Reality Capture, my go-to photogrammetry software. I aligned the images, I meshed it, I cleaned things up, textured it, and got something that looks totally awesome. In order to animate this guy, we need to rig him up, and I'm gonna do that the fast way with Mixamo, Adobe's free motion capture library. I'll drop my model in, tell it where all my weak points are, and hit go. And it'll bounce back an auto-rigged model. It's pretty sweet. I'll just export it in a T-posed state so that it's ready to be attached to custom motion capture data, which means I'm busting out the Rokoko Smart Suit Pro 2 and pretending to hike to the top of a mountain. But we want our data to loop, right? So check this out. In Rokoko Studio, if you hold Shift and click drag in the timeline, it'll actually loop that selection. You can even control the transition time, align the data along a certain axis, and even lock the loop in place. And after a quick export, it's time to connect my rigged character to the mocap data we just shot. Now you can totally use Blender for this or whatever program, but I'm just gonna use C4D because it's my personal program of choice. I'll add a character definition tag to each joint tree, and for each tag, I'll open the manager, extract the skeleton, and set the reference pose. This basically scans the joint trees and preps them to merge with one another. Now on our custom character, I'll create a solver and drag our mocap character's definition tag into the source character slot. I got a whole tutorial on literally this whole step because it can be a little tricky, but look at this. Our custom character is successfully paired to the custom mocap data. So now we can model some hiking poles, drop them onto the hand joints, and laugh at how bad this looks. But the fix is super easy. We just gotta select the hiking pole and its hand joint parent, go to character, and create an IK chain. It locks the bottom of the hiking pole in place without having to hand animate things. Now all we have to do is animate the goals to move appropriately with the feet. And just remember, we're going for a looping animation, so make sure the first frame is exactly the same as the last frame, and we're all set. Next, I want to bring this animation to life with a simulated poncho, because one of the most memorable moments of that hike for me was how the wind completely tore our ponchos to shreds by the time we made it to the top. So let's model the world's crappiest looking Minecraft poncho. We'll subdivide it, we'll throw a cloth tag on it and hit play. Sweet, all right, it's working, but we can do better. So in the cloth tag, I'll up its mass just a little bit, I'll lower the stretchiness, and in our project settings under simulation, I'll add like 60 substeps for a more accurate simulation. Let's get some turbulent wind going though. And to have it randomly rotate, I'm using a signal tag from Grayscale Gorilla, which lets me add random loopable noise to any keyframeable parameter. In this case, our y-axis rotation on the wind object. Since our first and last frame are exactly the same, I'm gonna trim one frame off the end only on export, so we don't see a duplicate frame on our final loop. Now let's bake all this as an alembic, export as an alembic, import it into Unreal as a geometry cache, drop it into the sequencer, select the geocache we just imported, animate the character 1700 units forward. Again, your number will probably be different than that, but yeah, this is looking pretty good here. And I used all the same cloth sim techniques to add this torn flag to our scene as well for a nice little touch. Now before we render this out for post-processing, which we're gonna get to in a second, let's do a couple things to ensure it loops nicely. Now if I were to export my loop now and play it back with itself, you'd see the snow pop in like this, because technically it needs a handful of frames to start up. So to fix this, I'll extend my timeline by 3 times for a total of 3 loops and set my in and out points to that middle loop. Then I can add 30 frame handles to the start and ending points to give me a bit more runway so that I can cross dissolve this render into itself when we get into the post-processing stage in just a second. Next, let's get nerdy and talk about some render settings. I'm using the movie render queue. It's found here, it's in your sequencer window. And if you don't see it, you just need to enable the plugin. I got a pretty basic setup. We're working with an EXR sequence set to DWAA compression to give us the most bang for our buck when it comes to color correcting and controlling our image later. I got some anti-aliasing going as well to smooth out any rough edges and clean up our motion blur. Now you'll want to check this override anti-aliasing box right here, and I'm using 16 samples this time around because of the quick moving snow particles and simulated poncho. In general though, try to keep this number as low as possible because it's just gonna render 16 times per frame now for every single frame. Next, I'm using a couple console commands, mainly r.screen percentage set to 150, which will essentially render your sequence at 1.5 times larger than your output resolution, then scale that larger render down to fit inside that same output resolution. It's just a way to make your renders look cleaner. And finally, an r.motion blur quality variable set to 4, again, because of the snow particles and the Poncho. And that's it. I like rendering at 4K because I can, especially in Unreal Engine, and just point your EXR sequence to a folder of your choosing and hit render. Because now we're gonna hop into Davinci Resolve and really bring the most out of this animation. So I'm in the edit tab and I'll just drag all my images into the timeline so it can auto detect this image sequence. Now let's color the images first, then smooth out the loop after. So I'll hop into the color tab where I'll make a new node with Alt S and I'll tweak the shadows, the midtones and highlights until I'm happy with my look. And maybe add another node for a subtle vignette or something, but nothing too crazy. Let's hop back into the edit tab where I'll add some lens blur to remove that 3D pixel perfect look. And I'll add a touch of camera shake as well. Finally, just a bit of film grain from GorillaGrain.com. Adding film grain is like the most important part to making your 3D render not look 3D, which is exactly what we're going for. And to finalize the loop, I'll just duplicate and stack these renders, drop the opacity on the top layer and walk it back till the frames match. Trim the clips, cross dissolve the cut, set your in and out points, and we are wrapped. If y'all enjoyed hanging out and learning something new with me in this video, definitely subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Leave a comment down below. What are you trying to do in 2023? What are you trying to learn? It's been an incredible year, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the channel, for watching these videos, for learning with me. We got through 2 incredible community render challenges. We made some awesome videos. We learned a lot this year. And I'm excited to take a break. I'm excited to reflect on the year and make some cool new goals for 2023 because I want to get into some new stuff. You know, we can't do the same thing all the time. You got to mix it up. So thank you guys so much. Have a great holiday break. I'll see you guys in 2023. Peace out. Later.